Um, so it's about 13 to 14 years ago when I was first introduced to Lean. At that time, I was not so far from you guys. I was a store manager of a Starbucks coffee company shop in Portland, Oregon. And this was around 2007, 2008 timeframe. Um, the company had been experimenting with lean ideas for a couple of years at that point, mostly in Seattle at the corporate headquarters, in corporate processes, and had sort of gotten excited enough about these ideas that they decided to conduct an experiment in Portland, Oregon, in 4 stores to see how these ideas could help improve the customer experience, primarily, also improve sort of business performance, the bottom line. But really the focus was on the customer experience and I'd say the employees' experience. At Starbucks, employees are referred to as partners. Some of you may know that, I guess. Some of you may have worked there. But in any case, I just happened to be managing one of the 4 stores that the company selected for that experiment. And we received training, we received coaching, we chose problems to solve in our store operations with our customer service, all that kind of stuff, and discovered tremendous benefit. Found ways to increase throughput, found ways to improve the consistency of the quality we were providing, found ways to reduce cost, improve product availability, improve the cleanliness of our store, all kinds of good stuff. And so after that experiment went on for about 6 to 9 months, a financial crisis hit the world. This is in 2008. And we had found enough business benefit in that store experiment that the company decided to kind of adopt these ideas and seek to share what we had learned with the other 25,000 or so stores around the world. So I ended up being invited to join a small lean team based in the headquarters in Seattle, Washington. Relocated my family. I guess at that time it was just my wife and I. We relocated to Seattle, Washington. I began working at headquarters on a team that set out for the next 5 years to kind of spread the learning that we had about lean applied to retail store operations to the other tens of thousands of coffee shops. And we ended up, that sort of culminated in a fully redesigned store operating system and sort of a revamped role for store managers, district managers to focus kind of everyone more on problem solving, on using lean thinking to solve customer problems. So I did that for about 5 years. As I mentioned earlier, LEI has been about spreading these ideas. Our mission is to sort of make things better by advancing lean thinking in practice. So getting these ideas out into the world in more and more places with more and more people. And so because these ideas came out of manufacturing at the time that we were experimenting with these ideas in coffee shops, retail, food service, especially at that time, virtually no other retail or food service company was trying these ideas out. So for that reason, LEI, as an organization interested in spreading these ideas, was very interested in what a notable company like Starbucks was doing with these ideas. And so started to pay very close attention to what Starbucks was doing with lean. And it was through that I got to meet the team at LEI, and ended up a few years later when I left Starbucks. I came to work, I drove all the way across I-90 and came to work for LEI. So I've been here for 8 years, since 2013. Most of the time that I've been at LEI has been in a role as a coach, sort of out in the field, working with businesses, managers, executives, team members, sort of all levels, right, to run experiments with these ideas, similar to the experiments that we were running back in the day at Starbucks. So I did that for about 6 years and then took on this role a couple of years ago.
Josh, very cool. So one of the things that strikes me, knowing the student audience that we're working with, so we're looking at lean with sort of this lens of a Six Sigma DMAIC, sort of approach to problem solving, right? Define, measure, analyze, improve, control. And you talked about your experience at Starbucks as sort of, experiments and lean thinking. Can you describe a little bit to the students, like what your approach is, or how do you look at lean? When you sort of think about like process improvement things, do you have like a secret formula that, or magic sauce or something that you apply?
Well, I do, but I can't share that. No, I don't think so. I mean, so the way that I approach it today is greatly informed by the experience that I had back at Starbucks, where the company had some significant problems to solve from the customer perspective. So there were aspects of the experience that a customer would have at Starbucks at that time that weren't great. Like I mentioned about throughput, there were times where time spent in the line was really long, where product quality was inconsistent, where the baristas might be too hurried to really be friendly and provide, good customer service, to keep the store clean, those things. So starting from the position of, to quote a friend of mine, problems that your customers give a shit about. So starting from that perspective, so who are your customers? What do they care about? Kind of what frustrates them? What goes wrong in their experience as your customer? And from there, stepping into the details of the work that people do to create that value, to create that customer experience, to create that product. So the process, I guess, in the sort of DMAIC formula. And in particular, as I learned to sort of engage in the work, the process that people do to create the value that customers give a shit about, I also was given an orientation by my teachers to really care for the people doing that work, and how often unsafe, burdensome, stressful, hurried, kind of discombobulated that work can be.
Right.
And when I was introduced to these ideas, I was one of those workers working in a coffee shop, frustrated by the fact that things just didn't work.
Yeah.
Product didn't arrive on time. Stations were disorganized. Customers were having to wait, and we didn't know how to address that problem. So I was frustrated by that.
Yeah.
And found that lean, the coaches that came in and helped us out, and then through my own practice, found that lean could be really helpful to alleviate those burdens, those stressors, those safety issues that workers experience day in and day out in many situations.
I think, Josh, there's sort of a really, I think, a good lesson, because I remember as I first started to approach, lean, maybe before I knew a lot or really understood, how it worked. One of the things that always worked really well for me was a lot of empathy, right? So we were doing transfer of products from R&D to manufacturing, at Hewlett Packard, and I had enough empathy for how hard it was for the R&D engineers, but also how hard it was for the manufacturers to work with projects or products that didn't quite build as easily as they should, and had to be that sort of empathy bridge between those sort of things. It sounds like you've got a sort of a similar strong orientation in that direction also, right?
I think so. And I think, I attribute some of that to the fact of kind of where I was in my career, what my job was at the time, what my work was at the time when I was introduced to these ideas.
Right.
So for me, I was that kind of frontline worker doing the work of serving customers, slinging coffee for customers, as we would say. That was my job at that time.
Right.
Like I said, that job was frustrating. That job was filled with problems that we were working around, dealing with day in and day out.
Yeah.
So when lean came around and gave me some practical tools, some practical means with which to alleviate that burden,
Right.
get rid of that waste, to decrease the rework, and I mean, really solve those problems that not only benefited me and the team and my colleagues that were doing that hard and frustrating work, but ultimately benefited our customers, which also just was nice. I mean,
Yeah.
we liked our customers. We wanted to do a good job for them, but often struggled to do so because things just didn't work, as I mentioned. So that impressed upon me very strongly and very early in kind of my lean experience, that a great value of these ideas and of these problem solving methods, DMAIC or otherwise, can have a tremendous impact in a positive way on folks doing the work that often, that today I guess we call essential. Anyway, so that certainly instilled in me a strong sense of empathy for those who do the work in often frustrating, unsafe conditions, and a belief, or not more than a belief, experiences that prove it doesn't have to be that way. The work can be better.
Yeah, it kind of makes the world a better place from my perspective. So, hey, so I want to encourage our students out there to, if you've got a question you want to ask Josh, I'm sure, you can get some really good free consulting on your mini projects. Josh has got years of experience in kind of an area that I don't have a lot of experience in, which is, retail and things like that. But it's interesting. So go ahead and type a question in chat if you want. Oh, Quincy, you're going to help us out. Thank you.
Oh, yeah. So thank you, Josh, for coming. So this year I'm working at Siemens Smart Infrastructure for an internship, and just hearing you kind of talk about how you've kind of seen people slinging coffee and some of those inefficiencies there all the way to the top. I'm kind of just commenting on that, but to kind of be out in the field with fire technicians and sticking my head up in roofs and being like, man, this is an annoying job, and scoping all the way back to the management. That's like, why is this job taking so long? I found it's kind of invaluable to get those skills, being out in the field or actually seeing what your company does as a job, and taking that and then talking to management to make a lean system. But that really resonated with me. So yeah.
Yeah, I agree. Something we often try and do. We were doing it when I was at Starbucks doing this work, and then it's a big part of what I still do today at LEI when we work with organizations, is to really encourage and facilitate, in some cases sort of require leaders in organizations to spend some time doing exactly what you just described, Quincy. Spend some time in the field at the place where the sort of the value creating work gets done, not just to sort of occasionally go visit, but to really spend some time there. I mean, to really immerse yourself, do that work, do that job. There's a phrase that someone introduced me to at one point. Is the group familiar with the term Gemba?
Yeah, it should be.
Gemba being the place where the value creating work is done, sort of the real place where the real things happen. There's a phrase that I picked up along the way: the Gemba don't lie. So often leaders in organizations who are far away from the Gemba have a narrative, have a sense of how things work. But often that narrative, that story they tell themselves about how things work, couldn't be further from the truth, couldn't be further from what actually happens when doing the job, when sticking your head up the furnace, and just sort of that experience. It's hard, that wouldn't naturally be a part of the executives of that organization's story about how things work. And we just find tremendous value in encouraging people to have experiences exactly like you're having, Quincy, to develop that empathy that Eric was talking about, and to come back with that empathy and be motivated from a leadership position with control over systems and the way jobs are designed, the way training happens, to start making that better for your workers. In turn, will deliver benefit for your customers. There's just no question. Yeah, thanks for sharing though.
Yeah. So, so Josh, as we wait for other questions from students, what is your current lean challenge? Right? What keeps you up at night currently? I know it's not making baristas more efficient, at this point, but
I don't know.
how does that go?
So I guess what comes to mind for me, so just yesterday, I had lunch with another organization here based in Boston, organization called the Good Jobs Institute. And we were both talking, we were talking together about the challenges that the restaurant industry is currently facing with, we've been reading about labor shortages. You've probably seen every retail establishment you go visit has a now hiring sign.
Right.
And the experience that I had at Starbucks, that I've had with other retail food service establishments over the years, suggests that there is tremendous kind of waste and opportunity in how restaurants organize their work and organize their workers, to the extent that there's considerably more people that get staffed into a kitchen, that get staffed into a dining area than are necessary, were the work to just be better organized, were much of the waste to be removed. So a challenge we were talking about yesterday, it's a big challenge, would be to get these ideas spread more and more throughout the restaurant industry as a way to counteract the fact that many of these businesses can't staff to the levels they think they need. Our argument would be, you don't need that. You don't need that number of cooks in the kitchen to begin with,
Right.
if the work were organized better. So it could be a tremendous service to those businesses, to the customers that they're trying to serve, if they could leverage these ideas to sort of increase productivity, reduce the number of wasteful jobs that exist in kitchens and in fronts of house and restaurants. So that's it's related to my barista challenge, but it's on the scale of an industry, not a coffee shop.
It's interesting. I would agree with you, right? But I also think it's very uneven, because I remember sitting at the counter, maybe it was a Denny's or some other break, and watching those guys, putting out those pancakes and those eggs in the morning. They were pretty lean. I can't say that there was a lot of missteps or opportunities in there. And then I also had to experience another friend of mine. We do a kind of a social thing where we get a bunch of people get together, and I'm making bratwurst on the grill or something, and he just happened to be a chef, and he also worked for Disney, down in LA and stuff. And man, the suggestions on how I could crank out more bratwurst, per minute as I had to, was pretty amazing. Some of the things that I saw him do when he sort of took over the grill to make that happen. So I think the information is there. It's just not maybe as pervasive or spread beyond maybe that select chef group or something. I'm not exactly sure. But.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, there's certainly techniques and know-how out there at the level of kitchens as a operating system.
Right.
There is tremendous opportunity. So if you look at us, if you just watch a individual cook, for a period of time, certainly you're gonna see hard and often efficient work.
Right.
If you study the larger system, for even just an hour, even during a very busy period where there's not so much unevenness like you're talking about, you'll see lots of unnecessary motion, waste, unevenness in the flow. that could be drastically improved with considerable productivity gains.
Okay.
We've seen it. We got
Yeah.
hands down. Got hands down.
Yeah, it looks like we hit a nerve there. So Sarah, you want to start us
Great.
out?
Great.
Yeah. Hi, Josh. Thank you for coming.
Yeah, thanks.
For my project, I'm kind of focusing on kind of accountability. I'm trying to improve this mentorship program that I'm in charge of. And it's where mentors or mentees, they're supposed to meet up at least 3 times a quarter. And it's kind of just improving that number, making sure that they're hitting at least 3 times a quarter. And like I've thought of some ways to solve it would be reminders or maybe like accountability sheet. But I just wanted to get your opinion on making sure, maybe at Starbucks, making sure people are doing what they are supposed to be doing.
Yeah, it's a good question. So Starbucks, in my experience there, or with many companies, there's often no shortage of rules and policies sort of written as to how people are supposed to be doing this or that. And often in reality, for whatever reason, what's supposed to be happening versus what kind of is happening are different. In spite of maybe good documentation, even good communication as to what is sort of supposed to be happening. I talked earlier about the value in, and I'm sure Eric's been speaking about this as well. The value in spending time really studying the process, to identify sort of these specific moments when things go awry and get in the way of that person doing what they're supposed to be doing. What the rules, the policy, the targets suggest they're supposed to be doing. And remembering that process has kind of several aspects to it. There's information kind of flowing into the process that's dictating actions, determining when people do certain things. And so making sure to study how that information's flowing. So you had some ideas about information flow, right? Reminders and things like this. Okay, so you're in that realm of information flow that's either supporting folks doing what they're supposed to be doing, or the sort of the correct thing or not. There's sort of objects flowing in and out of the process that are making it easy or difficult to kind of do the right thing. And then there's sort of specific like actions people are taking, like motion, decisions, traveling around, moving objects, that kind of thing. So to study all three of those things, to identify what it is that maybe isn't quite working, to help those folks do, again, what maybe the policy is clearly states is what they're supposed to be doing. I think you'll find maybe some things within that information flow, within the flow of materials or the flow of people, that is making it difficult, kind of getting in the way of those folks, sort of adhering to that standard, the 3 times a week or whatnot. That would be my thought of how to go about it. But some of the ideas that you're offering sound like they could be good countermeasures. I'd caution that before sort of maybe focusing on the ideas of things to try, I'd encourage you to spend some time maybe studying and learning really as much as you can about the process and the flow of those things and how they contribute to folks doing what they intend to do, what they'd like to do, the standards they'd choose to follow if it were easy for them to do so. Yeah,
interesting, Josh. Thanks for that. Yeah, it made me sort of think about the communications to get the information, but connecting that information to action. What's the thing kind of in the way of that, right? Interesting.
And often connecting it to the action, like just in time.
yeah, right. Not I'll do it a month from now or whatever, right? So
that's right. So make sure the notification comes at the time it needs to come. Not a week before or a month before. It was very helpful. Eric just today, this afternoon, sent me an email to remind me of this afternoon and the questions and all that kind of stuff. It was just in time. It was perfect. Helped me prepare for our time today.
Yeah. Brogan, you got a question for us or for Josh?
Yes, I do. Hi, Josh. Thanks for joining us today. I guess my question is, at your time during Starbucks, when you're looking at, improving a process or a couple of processes, how much do you take into account, like customer satisfaction and like how much like the customer like what, like, I guess what I'm meaning to say is like the customer feedback and, what they're telling you about the process and how your product is being presented to them. Like, how much do you take into account the customer's happiness and what they're saying?
Yeah, I mean, as much as possible. So in the case, well, I think any good improvement work, having clarity on what the customer values and ensuring that whatever changes you might make to the process will not only maintain that value, but improve it, couldn't be more important. So, however, we might go about perceiving the customer's perspective, whether it's measures of happiness or satisfaction or time spent or objective measures of quality. We did a lot at Starbucks around like defining very objectively what quality meant, like mouthfeel, temperature, density of foam. I mean, all that kind of stuff. All of that was to seek an understanding of what customers value and to give us measures that we could use to determine if we change this, what happens to those things that customers give a shit about. If any of those things start going south, then what we've changed needs to be changed back. Even if what we changed maybe gave us something we call efficiency. Efficiency is secondary. Quality, value, what the customer cares about must be maintained, if not improved. And then the other stuff that we can use lean ideas for or whatever, we should work on that too. But yeah, I mean, to your question, as much as possible in as many ways as we can sort of come up with. Not always so easy, and often forgotten, often neglected. What did the customers care about?
Yeah, good point. Thanks for a good question.
Brogan. Yeah, great.
Sarani, let's go ahead and use you for the last question here, or we're getting to the end. So I want to.
Perfect. Hi, Josh. Thank you so much for coming today. My camera isn't working today, so I'm sorry about that. But I just want to say that I think it's really cool that you came and really talked about your techniques that you implemented at Starbucks, because I'm working there this summer, and so it's really cool to see and hear about all the current techniques that you've kind of helped me make my workplace a lot easier to work in during our peak times and everything. So yeah, I just want to say first off, that's really cool. And I guess my question is, do you think during your time at Starbucks that your team probably implemented the max amount of Lean Sigma techniques into Starbucks at that time, or do you think there's still room for you guys to put in more Lean Sigma techniques into our business, I guess, or into Starbucks in general?
I think we just scratched the surface.
Okay.
I think I know that there was some positive impact made, some improvement made. I know that the customer experience improved at that time. I can't speak to, I've been gone from Starbucks a long time. So, what of the work that I was a part of a decade ago or so is impacting you? I can't say. Probably some of it, no doubt. But I don't know, sort of the mindset of continuous improvement is restless and perpetually dissatisfied. Feeling like we could always be doing more. So I know we made gains there. There were many things that, for various reasons, we were unable to get to achieve in terms of improvement for the customer, the business, the worker. But it's neat to hear that you're there, and hopefully there's some impact or some connection between us through that experience. That's cool.
Thank you.
Yeah, Sarani, thank you very much. Josh, I really appreciate your coming here and spending this time with us. I know it's really late on East Coast time at this point. I'm going to try to wrap things up here, but as a wrap-up question, one question we always ask our lean celebrities is, for these 30 some students who are just starting out on their lean journeys, what piece of advice might you have for them as they leave this class and go out and try to make some improvements in the world?
I think the best advice I ever received, the best coaching that I ever received, was echoed here during this conversation by Quincy. It would be to start with and to do yourself the work that your organization and your role is responsible for. Through that, you will develop empathy, and from that, you will gain ideas for how that can be improved for the benefit of your customer. I could not advocate for that enough. And it's not just a thing of getting started. That's a thing to continue doing. Even when you're a 60-year-old CEO of a multi-billion-dollar company, please don't get disconnected from the work that your organization does on behalf of its customers. Spend time doing it, spend time improving it. That would be my advice.
All right, Josh, great advice. And once again, thank you so much. So as a way to end our little video segment here, I request that everybody turn on your cameras. Let's go ahead and give Josh a little Zoom wave as sort of a thank you. You can kind of icon him out of here. Josh, thanks a lot. And we'll see you around. Hopefully see you, maybe out in San Luis Obispo, maybe in October timeframe. It'd be great to have you visiting here.
I hope so. If we can keep traveling,
Yeah, exactly. All right. See you later. Take care, Josh.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Bye-bye.